This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Today we have a special guest with us, Michael Glaspie. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
We're looking forward to having you on the show today, but just a quick bio on Michael. So Michael is a commercial business advisor based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Michael spent over a decade serving in the U.S. Army Special Forces as a Green Beret. Since purchasing his first investment property in 2014, he has used that military resourcefulness to complete several transactions in a variety of ways, such as subject twos, wholesales, flips and buys and holds, syndications, and more. He has built a rental portfolio of 134 rental properties, a real estate team of over 110 agents, and operated as a CFO in a private equity company focused on hotel acquisitions. Michael runs G2 Business Solutions, a personal consulting program providing fractional CFO services with a variety of solutions for every business owner. G2 Business Solutions has a financial strategy and a plan in place to get you to your goals, help you understand your numbers and options available to make timely, educated decisions. Well, Michael, like I said, it's super awesome to have you on the show today. Let's get started with maybe giving some background on yourself. How did you get started?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Texas, greatest country in the world.
Nice,
and
Texas.
Why'd you leave? Why'd you ever leave?
I know, right? I should have stayed. But I actually never left the state of Texas because it was so massive. Coming from very humble beginnings, I never left the state until I actually joined the military, and then I actually got my first plane ride and everything else. And so, the military was really a way for me to pay for college initially. But then I fell in love for it. I fell in love with it. It took me out of the state, got me on a plane. And then within a couple months, I was jumping out of those planes and hanging from the helicopters and all this other good stuff.
Wow.
So as a young man, I was like, yeah, I absolutely want to, move forward with this venture. So, I decided to try out for a Special Forces assessment and selection. I was blessed enough to actually make it through. And that's where that military journey kind of started. Now, the entrepreneurial journey started way before when I was a young kid, trying to help around the house and trying to, bring some more money in. I was selling Pokemon cards. I was selling snacks at school, all that fun stuff. And I continued that as I was in the military as well. The military provides a lot of opportunities. It has a ton of benefits, but it's not known for paying the best, right? So I was always trying to find other alternatives. And then I ran across my first property in 2014. Mm-hmm. At that time, I used the VA loan. I started house hacking it, which is essentially where people live in the house with me, single soldiers and all that other good stuff. And then I found out that was actually real estate investing. Oh, that sparked it for me at that point. As soon as I figured out that I was technically a real estate investor, it kind of took off from there. Continued growing, continued to focus on investing. A business partner, we created the team of agents, and then just opportunity after opportunity kind of continued to present itself after that.
Awesome. Wow. Well, first of all, just thank you for your service, and
thank you.
We really appreciate you. And so I would love to learn more, maybe share a little bit about your experience in the military, and then what you learned leadership-wise, and maybe overcoming challenges, and then how you maybe moved or trends. Mm-hmm. Put that into business or into practical use. But maybe tell me. I know you did several tours, and so I'm sure there's a lot of tough situations that you had to overcome and using and gain leadership skills and while you're in the military. But just share some insights.
For sure. It's so funny because you can mature so quickly in the military and yet be so immature when you come out, right? And I'll touch on a few of those. So one of the biggest things that I learned there was, as soon as we come in, people think, because you hear Green Beret or Special Forces, that means we have the best equipment, the best weaponry, the best, whatever. And that's actually just not the case, right? Oftentimes we're equipped with whatever we're equipped with, and we have to go over to these other countries and train them on their equipment. That could be 50 years old. That could be, passed down from generations or whatever the case is. And so the first thing that I really learned and embodies what is that it's not about the resources that you're given, it's about how resourceful you can be. And that carried through business time and time again. Now, so that's, part of my younger journey or younger experiences where I quickly realized there's no excuses. You got what you got. Let's make it happen. Now, as time kind of went on, I started realizing that there's a lot of people that serve that sometimes are disgruntled with their leadership. They'll do all of these things and their leadership will then choose what they think is best for you in your career. Mm-hmm. And we see this also in the real world, right? Sometimes we say, hey, you need to stay after work more hours so you can get promoted, blah, blah, blah. Well, what I realized was there was an opportunity, or there was a time where me and my friend were on the same team. We went to his training program, came back. And because my friend performed best, he got top student of the cycle and all this other good stuff. Our team leader said, hey, look, we're going to send you to another training in the next 3 weeks. But see, my friend actually just had a baby born. And all he wanted to do was spend time with his newborn baby. And so I heard from one of my, another mentor of mine in the military. He said, we've all heard of the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. But he highly encourages that as a leader, we follow the platinum rule, which is treat others how they want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And that completely changed my mindset with how I deal with my employees, how I deal with my team members, and so many other things, because it takes away any type of ego or trying to self-prophesize for somebody else. And it's really like, hey, what do you want to make of this? And how can I best help you get there?
Yeah.
Which changed the game as far as the leadership aspect, because that was a whole journey within itself.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that. Now that we are talking about leadership, what do you consider the most important qualities of a successful leader? What would you say if you had to break it down?
Honestly, I think there's one, it's your ability to communicate. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, I struggled. So I spent, well over a decade in the military, and I was already running these businesses simultaneously while I was active duty. But I had actually hired a few employees while I was still serving, and I had that military mindset still. And so this is where I say that you can mature in the military, but not be mature in the civilian space, if you will, in the real world. Well, I would come out and I would go to the office, and if somebody didn't have something done, I would ask, why isn't it done? What's wrong? Are you not getting the clear instruction? Do you not have enough time? And I would be very down their throat and very direct. And what ended up happening was several of our employees went to my business partner and was like, hey, Mike's kind of aggressive. He's coming at us kind of hard. We don't really like this. And so that's where that next step of being able to mature further and understand that there's a certain way that we could communicate. It's not all one size fits all. It's very customized to how that individual receives it. Mm-hmm. And a good leader can adapt their communication style depending on who they're in front of to make sure that the message gets across and that we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Love it. So something that Shawn and I try to do, we have about 45 employees here at Real Property Management in the companies that we own. And we're always trying to develop our team to become leaders. What are some things that you do with your agents to develop them to become leaders?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we really focus on is we want to make sure that they understand the concept of whatever the business model is first, right? And so with agents specifically, they have to understand sales. They have to understand sales inside and out before they can really start to develop their own team or the business or whatever the case is. Now, once they understand that, then we go through the thought process of everything in a business is an assembly line. That's it. Right. And so if you think about it, leads come in, they move down the assembly line, they get to the sales team, they move down the assembly line, they go to the whatever contract and so forth and so on. Once they understand that, then we allow, it's more of a conversational base, because what we try to do is encourage all of our agents and all of our employees as well to be independent thinkers, because we don't want them calling us to make the decision. We need you to make the decision and report back to us during our weekly meeting or monthly meeting, whatever the case is. Right. And so as we start to have those conversations, it's where in the assembly line are you getting stuck?
Yeah.
Where are you getting stuck at? And I don't care if it's admin or if it's sales. Once we identify where you're getting stuck, then we either develop an SOP, right? A different process, or we bring in a different system. Maybe it's another software program or something so we can unclog that bottleneck, and then we continue on. And so as our agents and our admins start to develop this and understand this, they start to see it at a higher level. So now when we move them up to those managerial positions, They understand how to evaluate and then come back to us and say, you know what? I think we need X in this position because of Y. Yeah. And that's what I need for my leaders.
Yeah. What about a leader or somebody that more control, right? Or they just want to, they think they can do it best, but they really need to, they're the bottleneck, but it doesn't really require an SOP or technology or something, but it's more just them releasing it. Do you have
that's a lot of business owners. Right?
Yes.
They want to control everything. They don't want anybody to touch it because they think they can do it better, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a hard pill to swallow, but if you don't let go of control, you will always struggle in scaling.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that I faced in the beginning. I used to think, and ego is something I think we all go through, but especially as a younger man, special forces, all this other stuff, I was like, oh, I got this. Yeah. I can do it and I can do it best. And although I accomplished some, it wasn't until I actually started saying, no, I need help. I need help in these different categories and allowing people to kind of take over those roles. Then that's when business really started to grow. That's when the opportunity started to come. So for all of those who are kind of stuck out there with that ego issue, I highly encourage you. Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's something small at first, but let it go. Try it. Just try it. And then kind of go from there.
Yeah. 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah. So Joni's doing a presentation next week, and a lot of her presentations on that. She's speaking to business owners and just.
It's tough. It can be tough, but once you do let that ego behind and let it go, like you said, I mean, that's how you truly are able to grow and scale.
Yeah. So tell. Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no! All I was going to say is I really, we have a very thorough hiring process. It's a very stringent. Over the years, we've kind of molded it that way. But I truly want all the individuals in the room to be solution oriented, bringing ideas and solutions towards me.
Yes.
So it's a very collaborative effort. If I'm the one coming up with ideas, I'm only as smart as I could ever be.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't like that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So tell us about G2 Business Solutions. How did that come up? Part of your business. How did you get into the CFO, services? Just tell us a little bit about the background and kind of what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my passion for business started at a young age. I was actually in high school. There was this program called DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America, which allow high school students to cut their chops, if you will, at business, right? So I've always been kind of sold in there. Went to college, got my degree in business, all this other good stuff. And as I continued to mold through all of these different failed businesses and other ventures, when I really fell in love with real estate was when I found that there's always a solution. It's just how creative can you be? And so this started to mold and started to create the portfolio, the companies, and it also allowed me to educate other investors, other small business owners on how to scale their investment portfolio or diversify their wealth in real estate. And as I continued to go through, I received my MBA. I became a CCIM candidate and instructor. I received an opportunity to come in for a small private equity firm that was focused on hospitality. So hotels, motels, Airbnb portfolios, and things of that nature. And during that time, that's when I really found my passion. It had all of it, right? It had the creativity of real estate. It had all the financial structures and strategy that I love. And it also had the business aspect of it, which is really the baseline of it all. And after that time, after I spent about 2 years doing that, I decided that I wanted to kind of create my own version of a company by offering fractional CFO services to small business owners who may not be able to necessarily afford a full-time CFO, right? But can absolutely benefit from it. And so G2 Business Solutions was born. And what we do is we really help all these small business owners. That my highest client has about 25 million in revenue, but we go as low as 200,000 to 500,000 in revenue, right? Because a lot of times it's just getting the structure in place,
right?
Having the proper organizational chart, having the proper SOPs lined out about how the money moves in. How does the billing and the invoice department then process the payments and then move it over? How do we use a budget, right? All of these different things. And so we really focus on trying to empower these business owners to gain mastery over their finances. So eventually they can hire that full-time CFO that they need.
Yeah. I love the fraction. We both love the fractional models. Like we've used it in our own companies where we've hired, fractional COO, fractional HR company. I mean, I think it's great for small business to medium-sized businesses, right? That you cannot, afford a full-on CFO. So absolutely, I'm a firm believer. I
had a couple questions. This is going to be off topic a little. Can you share a little bit what you thought while you worked with that private equity company on? We've never had somebody on the show that focused on or that had experience in hotel acquisitions and running, small motels and all that. What was your experience with that vehicle type, I guess, or commercial vehicle type? I mean, we've had everybody else. Just go ahead. I'm just curious for myself. I completely understand. Yeah, because when I was looking into it, I was extremely curious at the time too, right? And luckily they took the opportunity with me because I had experience in a lot of Airbnb portfolios and apartment buildings and multifamily, but not necessarily with hospitality at the time. But what you found was there was a very drastic change in the market for hospitality, especially right around the pandemic, right? So right around 2018, going into 2019. And so where the travel kind of came in place, just like office buildings are looking, as to be the next burst, hotels was considered to be the burst then. Well, there was Warren Buffett always says it best, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. During that time, there was a lot of fear in the market around hospitality. So we were able to go in and acquire properties for pennies on the dollar, essentially, by doing some creative options like loan assumption with the seller carryback allowed us to essentially go in with no money on some of these deals. All we have to do to stabilize when we look at the hospitality market is we have to understand our loan to value on these properties are going to be substantially less. So we're running at 60 to 65% on a stabilized property back then, right? And we calculated based off an average daily rate instead of monthly rental income, right? So all of these things were kind of coming into place, but it allowed us to be strategic with how we put the puzzles together to understand how can we acquire maybe multiple from the same seller for a crazy discount, stabilize it just enough to sell it to a larger hedge fund, equity fund, something to that effect. Or if we could stabilize it and sell it back to those individual owners who, kind of cherry pick one of the same. One of the biggest things that we focused on at that time was only sticking to, we're going to call them franchised models, but basically if it had a name, if it had a standard of operating guidelines, that's what we stuck with. Why? Because it's a lot easier to sell to those owners who already own that collection, right? Regardless if it's a Baymont Inn or a Comfort Inn or a Holiday Inn, whatever the case is. But it was a very interesting time. It was a very interesting time seeing that, again, it's just reaffirming that when others are running away from an asset, all that does is open up the opportunity for more creativity. Yeah. That's really all it does. And then the hotels are truly a business because there's so many other services and products sold inside of it. So it's a mix of multifamily with retail. Overall, it's a very interesting industry.
Really
just curiosity. But another question for you with the so when say you get a new client, what's kind of the first couple things that you look at on the fractional CFO side? Like what are you looking for? Is it more of a strategy session and here's where the owner's struggling and you kind of try to help that, or do you first just assess the entire business and what it needs, or do you just delve into the financials and look where there's holes or gaps, or just curious what you're looking for when you start off working with a new client?
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at the financials, because the financials are going to tell you more than the owner is going to tell you, right? The owner may think that they know, and that's fine. They know their business more than anybody, but you know how it is. Sometimes they may think, oh, my issue is sales. And it's like, oh, no, it's not. The issue is how much you spend on this or whatever the case is, right? So I want to look at the financials. And so when we deep dive into the financials, what I'm looking for specifically are the chart of accounts, which is basically all the items that the expenses or the income is coming in from. Do they all make sense? Are they organized? Are things in the proper places? I'll just give a quick example. Sometimes cost of sale or cost of goods sold, although it's an item that should belong in there, it's actually a bottom line expense, right? And so it just looks like an operation expense. So we want to make sure all those things are in the right place. Now, once we move everything in the right place, then I want to evaluate, okay, how efficient is this company actually running? After we move things and they're accurate, what do the numbers actually say? Now, once we have that, we can break down a financial statement into sections of efficiency. Right. And so I can see if you're leveraged. I can see if your pre-product is inefficient or if your post-product operations are inefficient. And once I highlight the inefficiency from there, then we dive into that area. Right. Now, if a client came to me and they said, hey, look, the only thing I'm looking for is to develop SOPs for this. Yeah, we can do that. But if you want the full version of the fractional CFO services, it starts from a 50,000 foot view, and then we narrow in based on what the financials show us, because it could just be an operational error or an accounting error, but we don't know until we actually get down to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, right.
What's some of the bigger, after consulting with a lot of clients, what do you see some of the bigger challenges or mistakes that business owners are making or not doing?
The biggest thing is where business owners think that a bookkeeper or a CPA is their strategic financial advisor. That's the biggest issue. CPAs are great. I love them. I work with a ton of them, but they primarily focus on taxes, tax advisory, and maybe tax strategy. They might be able to save you some money, but when we're looking at growing the company, and we need to look at the strategic growth, hey, do we diversify the types of revenue that we're bringing in? Is there a product or a service that we offer that we can break apart into different byproducts and then charge incrementally throughout? And now we've done nothing different, but we've increased our revenue. Those are the types of conversations that you bring in a CFO for. CPAs that's not their focus. And bookkeepers are amazing, but the bookkeeper's job is typically to help with data entry and collection. And then maybe they'll help prep like the tax documents that the CPA requests. And so when business owners think that the bookkeeper or the CPA is really going to provide that next level of strategy, that's the most common mistake that I see.
Makes sense.
Go ahead. Yeah. Question.
For a business owner that maybe is listening now, what advice would you give them if they are looking for a CFO? Maybe what questions to ask, somebody that they're interviewing?
That's a great question. So if you're looking for a CFO, that probably means there's a pain point or a problem in the company, something around the finances. So what I would say is go through the first initial steps. One, do you have financial statements that are in order? And you can go through a bookkeeper, you can go to CPA to kind of get that answered. Two, do you have a budget that you're operating by? If the answer is yes, great. And if you're still running into issues, now figure out what is your question? What is the issue? Do you think it's a lead generation issue? Most times, when we're taught as business owners, we're taught the fix to all of our financial concerns is to go out and get more leads or go out and get more deals. All right. That's fine. Right. That's okay. But is that really your issue? Right. There's a lot of different steps in this whole entire process. Most of us as business owners should be tracking our sales conversion from start to finish. And we should be tracking our marketing conversion. If you can look at your sales conversion, your marketing conversion, and you see that your conversion percentage is okay, but you're not producing the dollars, now it might be time to bring in a CFO, right? Because now we can really expand that conversation and go much deeper into the different strategies. There are to increase revenue, to cut expenses, to add in tax strategies, so forth and so on.
Yeah. You mentioned that, typically they come to you when they have a pain point, right? And that's usually, maybe, is it too late or, how can we get them to think, okay, like you should be doing it not as an afterthought, but at the very beginning, maybe, so you can catch these things early on than later.
Yeah, I think me personally, I wish everybody would do that, right? it's not the nature of an entrepreneur. Let's be honest, right? As an entrepreneur, we all want to kind of cut our teeth. We want to go until we hit a wall and then we're like, okay, I can't figure it out. Who do I need to bring in, right? And that's fine, right? I've walked that journey. I'm sure you guys have as well. In an ideal scenario, the way it would work was an entrepreneur would start their company and they would bring on a bookkeeper right away. This is just, the recommendation. You bring in a bookkeeper, and then you start producing money, and you would bring in a CPA right away, because you need to file those taxes. Yes, maybe you're not generating enough money to actually have to do tax strategy, but you still need to file the taxes. Now, let's say the next year comes up and now you're producing enough income that you're going to receive a taxation on a good chunk of it. Now start talking tax strategy. This could be filing as a different type of S Corp, C Corp, so forth and so on. It could be all the different tax write-offs. All right, great. Now we've pretty much hit that on the head, and we still have taxable income. Well, now we need to look at some other strategic opportunities to grow the company, right? Because we're no longer performing at a loss, but we want to increase this. And not only do we want to increase it, we want to be smart about it. How can we protect a lot of these gains from taxation? Right. That's another point of financial strategy. Yeah. So that would be the ideal kind of flow. But a lot of times people just don't know what you don't know. So for anybody in the audience who just wants to have a conversation about it, you guys can reach out to me as well. And I'll be sure to give you guys my contact information. And we can just talk about your situation and see if it's even needed.
Yeah.
Nice.
We both have hung around in the real estate circles for a long time. So the common issue I know with real estate investors is they always think bigger is better. And
yes.
And I'm just curious, like, how many people truly know their numbers? And then like a follow-up question with that would be, is bigger always, like, growing your company bigger? You know, if you don't know your numbers now and you grow, like you said, they just try to sell more and they think that's going to be the cure-all. Usually it doesn't get better when things are bigger. It just gets more complicated. So maybe speak to some of that and what you've seen.
Absolutely. That's such a great point. Bigger is not always better. Yeah. Period. I would say probably about, and obviously I'm just kind of winging it here, but about 10% of people probably really know their numbers. I rarely run into a client who can say, yep, here's my gross profit margin. Here's my EBITDA margin. Here's X, Y, and a third. My debt to asset ratios. That's right. And if we really think about it though, guys, that's not the lingo that entrepreneurs are taught either. Right. So it's understandable. But even beyond, let's say you don't really know your numbers. And a lot of times we focus on the wrong things in our company, thinking that it's a sales issue, thinking that it's a marketing issue. I need to throw more money at marketing. One of the worst things I hear. But if we continue to scale, and let's just say we went from $1 million in sales to $7 million in sales, but we were doing the same things, what we're going to realize is, although we may have generated more money, we kept far less than we could have. Right. The beauty about really understanding your numbers is, if you were to tell me, hey, my goal is to bring in about $2 million in net profit, or you to say, $2 million after taxes. Okay, well, this is a whole different story now, because now it's not about how many doors you have or how many clients you have. It's a matter of, okay, well, how do we maximize the income that you're already earning? And what else do we need to add on to achieve that specific goal? So it's a whole different way we can flip the entire conversation on the head by knowing your numbers and by knowing your goal. Too many people are just thinking that you can scale your way out of issues. And oftentimes when you scale, you actually create a lot more issues, right? Yeah. When you see that hole in the ship, when you're only making 200,000, imagine how big it gets when you're making 2 million.
Yeah.
Right? So
you are right.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, but learn the hard way. But So I know you have your own podcast, and I'd love to hear more about it. So the Military Cash Flow Podcast, can you tell us about that and kind of your audience and what listeners can expect if they tune into you?
Yeah, for sure. So the Military Podcast was created by my co-host, my partner, Dan Wynn. And he brought me on about a year after he had started it, because what we were looking to do is we realized that a lot of veterans, we go through all this great training in the military, but we have the hardest time trying to transfer that or explain it, right, when we get out and apply it in another way. So we kind of had this mission, this idea that we want to be able to show all veterans what they're already armed with. Remember, when I alluded to in the beginning, it's not about all the resources that you're given, it's how resourceful you are. Well, come to find out, veterans and service members, we actually do have a ton of resources that are never exposed to us for whatever reason, but they're never brought up to us. So our mission was to kind of go out there and start showing all these different resources that we have, whether it's disability claims, nonprofit organizations to help with PTSD and mental anguish. If it was homes, Purple Heart Homes, right? If you've been injured, you can actually get donations and funding for a house, all of these different things. In addition to that, we wanted to teach them how to use their TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, which is essentially the government's 401k. How can we use that to kickstart your investment? How can we use the VA loan to get 8 properties with no money down? Right? How can we transfer over life insurance policies to our children, right, after we get out? All of these different things. So what a listener can kind of expect is, yes, you are going to get a mix of government specific, because it doesn't just tie to military, any government employee, but it's also a lot of different creative approaches to, creating and preserving wealth over time as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, wonderful service. Yeah.
So, Michael, I have a question for you. If you were just starting out and could go back in your early 20s, what advice would you give yourself? I mean, you're already in your 20s. You look young.
Yeah, no. Yeah. 20s is gone. 20s is gone now. But, honestly, and I was thinking about what I would, because there's so many different things, right? There's so many different things. I am a firm believer that in your 20s, you should be trying a little bit of everything, because you don't know what you're going to like and what you're going to stick to, right? So a lot of people, the traditional adage is, hey, you go to college, you get a degree, and then you find a job and you stick with it, right? Well, that time, I think, is long gone.
Right.
So I do encourage people to try many different things, because you're going to find, one, you're going to find what you're passionate about and what works for you, but 2, you're also going to get a lot of experience that can apply to those different things that you try, right, at the end of the day. But I would also encourage myself specifically to slow down, to slow down. I felt like there was a stick of dynamite in me, and the wick was just burning away. I was like, I gotta go. I just have to do it all. And I did not stop. I didn't stop. I'd work 80-hour, 90-hour weeks, since I was 19, but it was this thought that time was running out. And if I didn't achieve it by a certain point, then I wouldn't achieve it. And to be quite frank, it was finally when I let that stick of dynamite go that everything really started falling into place. So, although I encourage people to try things, I also would encourage myself to slow down a bit, smell the roses, get focused, and just be purposeful with all of your actions.
Love it. Great advice there. So what's Michael's next? What are you looking to accomplish maybe in the next 5 to 10 years?
Man, so many things. You know how it is. As entrepreneurs, we're always thinking 3-4 steps ahead. Yeah. So obviously, I'm looking to provide as much value as I can within all the companies, but specifically with fractional CFO services. So as many small business owners as I can out there. But you know what? I want to share a little vision here. And if anybody is out there that is doing it now, I would love to be a part of it. But I have this vision where there's this summer program essentially for junior to senior and high school students, where they can come out of their junior year. They would go to this camp. Let's call it 10 weeks, 12 weeks. The first 2 or 3 weeks, we're teaching them all about business curriculum, just understanding of accounting, of sales, of so forth and so on. And then the final portion, they're actually thrown into the fire and they have to create their own business, right? And they have to create their own business plan. They actually have to implement it. They have to start making calls, making sales. And at the end of this program, they then get to pitch their business to a board of directors, if you will. And this board of directors will be other entrepreneurs, maybe some venture capitalist people, so forth and so on. And, ideally, we'll hand out some scholarships to go to school if they like. But the grand scenario is all of them are going to learn something that the school systems are not teaching them. And 2, there may be an opportunity that one of them have just created an idea so grand that it's picked up right there on the spot, and they can find a business partner and kind of go off from there. I know personally, if I had something like that, I didn't come from I love my family to death, but we weren't a highly educated household. We didn't come from money or anything like that. If I had that opportunity, then I only can imagine where I would be today or the impact that I could have had on the world. So that's something that I would really like to get started within the next 5 years.
That's super cool. I love the vision and dream. And I mean, I think you should definitely do it. I'd send my kids there. Shawn and I got started.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I'd send my own kids.
Shawn and I got started at 19 years old, and we also wish there was something like that. I mean, we spent Shawn's college money on real estate courses.
That's fun. We used to do cash. Robert Kiyosaki's book had just come out, and he created the cash flow board game. So Joni and I are there, like 19-year-olds, and we're playing with like 40-year-old people. We go to house parties playing this game of, and we were all with 40-year-olds, and
that was our college life. Like you said, you need to experience. We didn't experience anything in our 19s and 20s. All we did was we were focused on real estate, right? But
it pays off.
Yeah, it does pay off.
I think that's the best way.
Yeah.
For sure. Because, when you think about college now, I mean, I have my master's degree, but I'm going to be the first one to say that college is not needed to be successful in life. It is not needed at all. And I do think that those individuals like yourself who could find something that you're passionate about that early, yes, it's like success is almost guaranteed. Yes, success is relative, but it's almost guaranteed because now you're pouring in so much more time into that activity. And really over time is how we gain the experience and how we gain, everything else that comes with it. So I admire it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Michael, lastly, how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about you and your work and your, fractional CFO services? We're going to have all that in the show notes, but go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to reach out to me specifically to talk about your company, whatever the case is, you can reach out to info@g2businesssolutions.com. If you guys just want to see kind of more of the things that we're doing and some more of the content that I push out, you can always check out the YouTube channel, which is just my name. It's Michael S. Glaspie. And that's it.
Awesome. Are you on social? Any social media?
Yes, I am on social. It's all Michael S. Glaspie, all across the board. Yeah, all the Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, the whole nine.
Sweet. Well, this has been an awesome episode.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing and being on today and taking the time. So we'll put all that in the show notes, and hopefully some people can reach out, and we'd love to learn actually personally more about your CFO services. So that's absolutely that's awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes.
Awesome.
And we will see everyone next time.
Thank you.
See ya.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there, talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.